Hey everyone, Matt here from Sisu. Right, I'm going to start with an apology. Sorry I've not posted a video in so long. My excuse is I've had a lot more on recently, so good from a business perspective in terms of clients doing a lot more online and virtual delivery, which is great. But also, let's be honest, I've just been putting it off a little bit. But I don't know why, because I really enjoyed doing them. And in particular, I enjoy kind of engaging with people and engaging with some of the content that I've been creating. So hopefully over the next few weeks and months, I'll pick it up and start to do some more regular videos. So the video today, I wanted to keep dead short. I just wanted to talk about two things really. So the first one was a study that I found which looks at the possible positive mental health impact that a pandemic can have. Now bear with me on that one because I know it's a little bit different from what you'd expect. You know, you'd be thinking what's going on now must be having a negative impact on people. But actually this particular study is really interesting in terms of some of the positive things that can come out of a pandemic like this. And the second thing I wanted to do was just give you a bit of an update on my month of wellbeing. So if you remember, if you follow my videos, back in June, I decided I was going to do this month of wellbeing and set up some habits for myself. So I can give you the results of that and let you know how I got on. So first up, let's look at this study. So again, if you've seen one of my previous videos, you'll have seen that I'm always looking for parallels in the research and in the literature between what's going on now and what's happened previously, what we can learn from previous pandemics. And as I've said before, it's really difficult because of the sheer scale and the magnitude and the impact that the current crisis is having on people. But there are some interesting things from, for example, the SARS virus back in 2003. There was a lot of research done about that. And if you remember from a previous video, again, I talked about that despite the fact that that was on a much less scale in terms of the impact that it had, the people that it killed in terms of numbers, actually the perception at the time in Hong Kong in 2003 was that this was a really bad pandemic. It was having a real huge impact on people's lives. So I do think there are some interesting things to learn from that. And this particular study, it surveyed, I think, about 900 people, so a decent sample size of people. And they were asking them about their mental health and how their habits and how their mental health had changed before, during, and after that SARS crisis in 2003. And there's some really interesting results. So firstly, they found that over 60% of those people surveyed said they cared more about their family members' feelings after the epidemic than they did before. So that's really interesting. They were tapping into the way that people felt. They also found that 30 to 40% said that they were sharing their own feelings more often with their friends and family. That was, as you won't be surprised to hear, significantly lower for men than women. So men were obviously bad at sharing our feelings. But for all genders, there was a real kind of bump during that pandemic in terms of people talking more openly about how they were feeling. Either if they were feeling happy or not happy, at least they were sharing that. And the real interesting result that came out of it was 2/3 of the people asked said that they cared more about their mental health after the SARS virus than they did before. Now that's really interesting to me. So obviously, there's lots in the media, for example, rightly so at the moment, about the huge negative mental health impact that what's happening now could have on people. And certainly, I'm not minimizing that impact. I do think that that's something that really needs to be taken seriously. But if there is a silver lining on all this stuff, I do think that it's around awareness. I certainly from the people that I've spoken to, much more aware of talking about their mental health more openly, tracking it, thinking about it, checking in with themselves, more so now than they would have done before all of this kicked off. A lot of people that I've spoken to, they've talked about this crisis and lockdown in particular as a chance to kind of pause and step back and reflect on things, get a new perspective, what really matters to them around values and how are they doing in terms of their own mental health going forward. And then finally, they looked at some really interesting stuff around exercise and how people's habits changed during that pandemic. So they found that 36% of people were doing more exercise during that pandemic. And I do think that's something that will be reflected in the current crisis. Certainly people that I've spoken to, remember when they brought in that first hour, you could do an hour a day. People were doing it. People were going out and exercising. For some people, that will have been less exercise, those people who do a lot of exercise already. But for more people out there, actually, that 1 hour a day was a lot more than they may have been doing previously. It kind of brought it to the front of your mind. It'd be really interesting to see if people can get those new habits to stick around their own health and well-being. And then finally, even in terms of things like rest, relaxation, mindfulness, those sorts of techniques, This study showed that awareness in those things went up somewhere between 35 and 40%. So again, people were thinking more regularly about their mental health. So in summary, like I say, I'm not trying to silver line the whole thing, and if you're feeling like this has had a real negative impact on you, I would say that that's completely natural. But at the same time, is there anything positive to come out of this? If it's only awareness, if we're talking a little bit more openly, honestly about this stuff, it can only help going forward. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about was my own month of wellbeing. So how am I doing during lockdown? So if you remember, at the start of June, I set up these different habits. Some were around physical health, some were around mental health. So for example, I decided I wanted to do cardio every single day so that I could form a habit around that. I was going to do 100 sit-ups, I was going to do 20 press-ups, just as, I know it's fairly arbitrary, but it was just to give myself a habit that could potentially stick going forward. I also quit Twitter as well because that was having a negative impact on my mental health, and I'm pleased to say that I'm a month and a half off Twitter and I am definitely not going back. I'm done with that platform in terms of some of the toxicity that comes from it. But yeah, I just wanted to share some of the outcomes, some of the things that that those positive habits actually helped me to achieve. So one of the things that I did at the start of June was I measured some of my vital statistics. I weighed myself, I checked my waist measurements as well, and really good news. So in terms of weight, I dropped 5.5 kilos, which is great, and nearly a stone in terms of weight, which I definitely had to lose. And then the second thing was around the waist measurement, so that went down 2 inches. So I was really pleased with that. It left me feeling better as a result of what I'd achieved during June. The mental health stuff was a little bit more difficult. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to put my phone to bed at night. So at 9:30, I had a notification through the new Sisu app that would say, put your phone to bed. And I basically ignored it all but 3 of the days in June. I always made an excuse, I need Netflix, that's running off my phone, or there's an email I need to read, or I'm just reading an interesting article. They're all excuses, so I need to find a new way to do that. But on the whole, I would say using the Sisu app and tracking my habits during that time, it really worked for me. I started quite small and I just got those things to stick. The notifications were useful because it cued you into that potential behaviour. So having the notification saying do the press-ups, do the sit-ups at opportune times during the day actually nudged me into those behaviours. And the other things which I did was never missing twice. So I found myself that I missed them, missed these exercises and missed the behaviours once or twice as I went through the month. But if I missed once, I could see quite clearly on the app that I'd missed once and I didn't want to miss twice. So what that helped me to do is to kind of bounce back from those little setbacks and keep the habits going. I guess the real hard work starts now. If I want to get some of these things to stick, they'll take longer than a month. So let's see how we get on in July and August and see if we can make some more progress around that. And then the other final thing is I was also tracking my mental health during this time. I was actually using a new product that we have at Sisu that we've partnered with, which is called Lumian. And this is an online digital resource that sends you 10 questions every week, asking you about your mood, your stress levels, your exercise levels, whatever it may be, and it gives you an overall score. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Lumian and how all that works in a future video in a few days' time, because it's really interesting. But the results for me were really positive during June. I went up from 76 to 96 during that month. Again, I'll explain a little bit more what those numbers mean. But I've been finding it really interesting that we've got these digital products at Sisu, be it the app, be it the Lumian system to track people's well-being, and clients are engaging more with it. And I want to tell you more about those digital products and how they can help people's well-being in videos in the coming weeks. So if you've got any questions about those, I've got some links in the description where you can find out some more information. Feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, remember to like and subscribe to the video. I promise I will do them slightly more frequently, and I'll see you soon.